Coming up on WAB's Week in Review, more from CDC experts on the president's latest vaccine order. Atlanta's mayor slams Democrats for snubbing the city. We look at a big anniversary for a playground created by a famous designer. And Cobb officials hope connecting women in jail with their children and new mentors will change their lives. This is WAB's Week in Review, the show where we look back the last few days of stories from your WAB News team. I'm Alex Helmick, managing editor of WAB News. Coming up, Atlanta celebrates 50 years of one of its most iconic playgrounds and the designer who created it.
Gucci had tried to do it for 4 decades in the city of New York and did not succeed, but it was only in Atlanta that it succeeded.
More on the famous play space in the ATL. But first, former CDC researchers in Atlanta are expressing objections to President Trump's executive order on Monday to separate the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine into 3 different shots. WAB's Jess Mador reported the story.
The order directs health officials to create a plan for separating the vaccine known as the MMR shot. It also includes other changes to the U.S. childhood vaccine schedule the administration previously attempted to make before being blocked by a federal judge. Doctors groups with members in Georgia say separating the MMR vaccine isn't backed by decades of evidence and would fuel confusion about vaccine safety. There's also concern about the timing. This year's measles outbreak has already surpassed last year's, which itself broke records with the most cases of the illness in more than 3 decades. Jess Mador, WABE News.
Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens is blasting the Democratic National Committee after the city was not included as a finalist to host its convention in 2028. WABE's Raul Bali had more.
In a letter obtained by WABE, Dickens wrote, quote, "The DNC continues to make the wrong choices, and that it's abandoning the South and black voters." Back in April, the mayor said this while standing next to DNC Chair Ken Martin.
Atlanta represents what the Democratic Party needs right now. It's the only city that is in contention, that is actually in a state that the party actually needs to win. And it's the only city with the demographic makeup that the people we need to be talking to.
The DNC's announcement comes right after Democrats schedule South Carolina as the first presidential primary in 2028. About a quarter of the state's residents are black. Boston, Denver, Philadelphia are the finalists to host the convention. Raul Bali, WABE News.
An Atlanta faith leader, along with others from around the country, is continuing to question the delay of law enforcement's investigation into the death of a black teen whose drowning death off the coast of Mississippi is being contested. As WABE's Lily Oppenheimer reported, a ceremony honored Nolan Wells Wednesday on what would have been his 19th birthday.
Wells was with a group of all-white teens when he went missing during a July 4th boating trip to Mississippi's Horn Island. Search teams found the teen's body along the shoreline on July 6th. Atlanta senior pastor of the New Birth Baptist megachurch, Jamal Bryant, traveled to Biloxi, Mississippi to be the keynote speaker during the service.
I bet you $1,000,000 if it was 5 black boys and 1 white boy on the boat. By now, there would have been an arrest, there would have been a warrant, there would have been a seizure. But because America doesn't believe that Black Lives Matter, they trying to act offended because we want to ask the question, what happened to our brother?
Authorities have released few details during the investigation, and the Congressional Black Caucus is now demanding a federal probe into the case. Jackson County District Attorney Angel Myers McGilrath released a statement this week following criticism of a lack of transparency from her office. She says, quote, "Nolan deserves better than her stepping outside the bounds of the law and prematurely sharing evidence because of public pressure." Lily Oppenheimer, WABE News.
A chance to reconnect with their kids is what a Cobb County Sheriff's program is offering to a select group of women in jail. WABE's Shemaine Cruz had more.
Some of the incarcerated moms immediately start wiping away tears and reaching for tissues after Major Yamina Holt says,
just like you have a wedding and you have your first look, we're about to have our first look with the kids, so you'll be able to enjoy that contact visit with them.
She oversees the new Bond Beyond Bars program at the Cobb County Jail, which recognizes the important role that family connection plays in rehabilitation.
Excuse me, can I just ask how you're feeling right now? Is it okay if I ask?
I'm overwhelmed. I'm feeling very excited and blessed.
That's JT with her two boys, ages 6 and 2. We're only using her initials for her privacy. JT says she's been incarcerated since June, or as she puts it, long enough.
It showed me that people really still care, and I need to do better.
All of the participants are in good standing at the jail and have either finished their GED or gained workforce skills and certifications. They also took classes on parenting, anger management, and navigating probation. Sheriff Craig Owen says those are important lessons.
So that mom can rekindle that bond with their children and let the children know that they have not forgot about them.
4 historically black sororities, known as the Divine Nine, also rallied behind the moms throughout the program. Shemaine Cruz, WABE News.
2 entertainers have reached a settlement with the police force at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, ending a controversial policy they argued in a federal lawsuit targeted black passengers and violated the constitutional rights of travelers. WAB's Melissa Fado had the story.
Eric Andre and Clayton English say Clayton County Police unlawfully profiled them in a practice where officers would intercept boarding passengers on the jet bridge. The policing project at New York University says the county regarded these encounters as consensual and random and necessary to fight drug trafficking. But in reality, travelers were pressured to go through with questioning and search of their belongings. As part of the settlement, the county has agreed to end that practice and have all officers assigned to the airport wear a body camera, which Andre called a major victory. In a statement, Clayton County says the settlement includes no admission of liability and that all parties agreed to move on. Melissa Fato, WABE News.
Well, the city of Atlanta is using an AI-powered music tool to grow tourism numbers, though some local artists have reservations about the technology. WAB's Marlon Hyde had more.
This is Atlanta's Sonic ID. Does it sound like Atlanta? The music bed was created by CCM Song, a company based in France that builds sonic identities for global brands, like Samsung. When founder Michael Boumendil composed the sound, he thought about Atlanta as a cultural crossroads.
Crossroads in terms of culture, in terms of food, in terms of sport, in terms of music.
Here's where AI steps in. Let's say you need music for a video about a Latino chef in Atlanta. An editor can drop their clips in and select from a variety of music beds developed from the Sonic ID to match the video's theme. Andrew Wilson is the Executive Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer of the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau. He commissioned this tool to keep up with the demand for short-form videos.
We're producing 40 pieces of content a week.
About a quarter of that content are videos that need a music bed, which ends up costing them time and money.
We couldn't scale, so we were not producing many pieces of video content. And when we did, then we were trying to limit ourselves to free music.
Eumir Gutierrez, also known as DJ EU, is the official stadium DJ for Atlanta United FC. He's created music for the Bureau in the past and says growing AI use is concerning.
When you have AI creating something, it's just creating out of words and direction, not real soul.
However, he says as long as it's helping to streamline the work instead of making the music itself, he's okay with it. ACVB says it wants to work with local artists to continue updating the city's Sonic ID. Marlon Hyde, WABE News.
You're listening to WAB's Week in Review with me, Alex Helmick. More now from Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens, who wants the famous Olympic cauldron to stay right where it is, siding with the Summerhill residents who, for months, have fought its pending move to downtown. WAB's Dormaya Vance explained.
In a letter, Dickens told partners involved in the decision that the relic should remain in the neighborhood that hosted the 1996 Olympics. Georgia State University, which owns the land, unveiled a plan to relocate the cauldron to Centennial Olympic Park earlier this year. Sharon Pitchford with the Summerhill Neighborhood Development Corporation is pushing for the property to be turned over from the state to the city of Atlanta.
How can we get it back to the city that it belongs to instead of being in the hands of another entity that it's not what bought it here and that hosted it?
Cheryl Calhoun, who lived in Summerhill for over 60 years, has a personal connection to the cauldron. Her mother carried the Olympic torch during the 96 games. She anticipates the mayor's input will have an impact on the decision.
I'm hoping that the donors that's contributing toward having it removed from Summerhill, that they would pay attention and side with the mayor that this is where it should remain.
Meanwhile, officials say the relocation is a part of a restoration project to put the cauldron where more people can experience it. The organizations involved in the effort did not immediately respond to WABE's request for comment. Dormaya Vance, WABE News.
Well, this summer, Atlanta is celebrating the 50th anniversary of what may be the city's most unique playground and the designer who brought it to life. WABE's Marissa Mecki told us all about it.
On a blistering hot morning, Adeline Collot is standing next to a tall white cylinder wrapped in a blue slide on the edge of Piedmont Park.
The farmers market is our first goal, and then getting our kids' energy out is number 2. So this playground is great because it's actually shaded.
The Noguchi Playscape is almost hidden from view, tucked away on a hill above the paths of Piedmont Park. Collot says her son loves the sand pit.
He also loves the slides here, and they're a little scary. They're a little steep. So as a mom, I'm a little nervous when he climbs up into them, but it really develops his sense of autonomy and his sense of bravery.
She says she feels a little extra lucky to have this playground in Atlanta after she visited the High Museum this summer to learn more about the Playscape's maker, American artist Isamu Noguchi. Monica Obniski is the curator of decorative arts and design at the High Museum of Art. And this year, the museum hosted a whole exhibit about Noguchi.
He's, I think one of the most complex, complicated artists of the 20th century, but that's what makes him so important and someone that you want to keep revisiting.
As Obniski winds through the exhibit, which closed earlier this summer, she points out the wide diversity of Isamu Noguchi's works. The iconic Herman Miller coffee table, stone sculptures, Akari paper light sculptures, stage sets for American modern dancer and choreographer Martha Graham, work that spans fine art, consumer goods, architecture, and a single playground, the one here in Piedmont Park called Playscapes.
He wanted to make a playground basically since the 1930s and only succeeded here in Atlanta in the 1970s.
She says 2026 was the perfect year to host this exhibition because it's the 50th anniversary of Playscapes.
In the early 1970s, someone associated with the High Museum of Art had this really radical idea of making a public space that taught people about art, but then was also kind of connected back to the High Museums.
Obniski says the High worked on making a kind of sponsorship for the Playscape, and through a public-private partnership, had Noguchi dream up the playground.
Noguchi had tried to do it for 4 decades in the city of New York and did not succeed, but it was only in Atlanta that it succeeded.
It opened to the public on May 1st, 1976. The Playscapes is Noguchi's only playground, but he also made other public spaces like Hart Plaza in Detroit, which opened the year before.
They're incredible places that, again, encourage human interaction, but also in very beautifully set, in places that are beautifully set.
Collot says she studied urban planning at Georgia Tech and has even built a few playgrounds herself. She says she loves the Playscape because the structures challenge the kids.
They have that opportunity to figure out what are their limits and what feels safe to them.
And she also loves the design and artistry of it.
I think all of the kind of organic shapes contrasted with the geometric just is something that really reoccurred in a lot of his designs and other monuments.
The exhibit at the High Museum has closed, but Atlantans can visit the Noguchi Playscape in Piedmont Park anytime. Marissa Mecki, WABE News.
And speaking of anniversaries, the High Museum is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. The Atlanta institution just reinstalled its American art galleries to mark the occasion, and WABE is visiting Atlanta area museums to observe another big year, the 250th anniversary of the United States. We're looking at objects that help tell the country's story. WABE's Molly Samuel took us to the High.
The American galleries include paintings and sculptures, furniture, photography, metalwork.
Together, they tell a group portrait of what American art is at the High.
Annie Peligara is a curator here. The painting she's here to talk about is by Jacob Lawrence.
He is such an important figure, not only in the history of American 20th century art, but also African-American art in this century.
Night and They Go to Sleep from 1943 is one in a series of works Lawrence painted about Harlem.
This is a really sweet interior scene of a couple laying in bed while their baby sleeps in a crib right behind them.
The colors are rich, green and blue.
And the couple itself are sleeping under this really dynamic improvisational quilt, which is really what interested us about this painting.
The patterned quilt brings out its own rhythm, and hanging right next to the painting on the gallery wall is a quilt, a real-life version of the kind that might have influenced Lawrence.
While we don't know who made this work, we know that it draws on a lot of traditions and styles that would have been very common to the American South. And what's interesting is that while Jacob Lawrence is associated with Harlem, which is where he grew up and trained as an artist, he was actually the son of Southern migrants.
Peligara says the pairing of the painting and the quilt shows a modern American artist bringing influences into his work, from his culture and history, from folk art, looking back while also looking forward into the future. Molly Samuel, WABE News.
See more of our US 250 coverage at wabe.org/US 250. That's all for the show this week. My thanks to the WABE News team for all the great work. You can get more at wabe.org and check out our news videos on Instagram at WABE News is the handle. I'm Alex Helmick. Thank you for supporting WABE News and listening to the Week in Review.